Hi guys, how are you? I miss you. I hope you had a good spring break. Hope it was relaxing. Hope it was enjoyable in some way. Hope you got to do something special for Easter if your family celebrates Easter. Mine was very relaxing. I was really, really grateful that the weather was good. And I have really cruised through books. I got to tell you about a book I read. It was very, very, very good, very intense. It's called The Thousand Splendid Suns by the same author as The Kite Runner. It was on my shelf. I don't know if any of you read it. I thought a couple of you I know read it in eighth grade. But it's by Khaled Hosseini, and it's Afghanistan. And it starts with a couple of main characters, and it starts in 1959 in Afghanistan. And I honestly didn't know a lot about Afghanistan, like the history of Afghanistan, except after September 11th, 2001. But there's a really powerful story, a little bit gritty in parts because it's very difficult to be a woman when the Taliban controlled Afghanistan, and also the prospects. So it was good. So if you ever see this book and you want a good book to read, it's a great one. Just intense. So we're doing our poetry competition. So this is week 2. We started before spring break, and then we had spring break, which for me, I needed a break from my screen because I get tired of looking at my computer screen. But that's okay. I miss you. I miss you very, very much. And I'm on my ball. So we have 2 poems today. So you're in the Google Classroom watching this video right now, and I want you to open up the first poem called Changing Everything. Now, last week when we had school, you looked at 2 poems. One was called Spring Harvest of Snow Peas. Sometimes it's just called Snow Peas. And when I last looked at the scores I think it was Wednesday, Spring Harvest of Snow Peas had 793 points. And then I'm offering this poem had 907 points. So right now, and I will tabulate it one more time at 4 o'clock today and come up with a winner. And that winner means that poem will see it again against the winner of this week's poem. So in your Google Classroom, you have 2 poems there. One's called Changing Everything, and I want you to open up that one. And you can see it when it opens up. It's a short poem. It's only 14 lines long. You can see that there are 3 stanzas. Remember, poems are made up of lines, and lines are grouped into stanzas. And you can see in the first stanza there are 4 lines. And the second stanza there are 5 lines. And in the third stanza, there are 5 lines again. So there's not like a traditional pattern. And if you also look at the end words, again, woods, light, saw, you can see there's not a rhyme scheme. And if this poem doesn't follow rules, traditional rules like stanza length, line length, rhyming patterns and such, then it's not a traditional poem, it's free verse. So think of those things as you look through it. And these assignments, a lot of you said, I didn't do very well on that assignment. Can I do it again? And the answer is no, because I want you to analyze the poem, line lengths, because sometimes poets will put together a poem and they'll say, okay, I'm going to make a pattern with how many words are in each line. And then I'm going to put the patterns together within each stanza. And so when I ask you to analyze the shortest line length and the longest line length, I want you to start looking for patterns in line length. And make sure you put line and then the number. Some of you are just putting a number. And yeah, you have the right number, but you have to put line because Google wants me to give you a correct answer. So, but if you miss them, it's not hurting your grade, because what I really, really want you to do is analyze it about how the form, does it affect the meaning of the poem or the figurative language and such. So this is how we're getting the points. So don't worry about, oh, I only got 3 out of 10, but I know I answered most of those questions. It doesn't matter. I just look to see if you have it. I look to see the numbers you gave when you analyzed it, and I figure out what poem is winning. So it's not a traditional assignment. So please take a breath. Hopefully you're looking at Skyward. So when you see in Skyward the poem, it's an all or nothing kind of score, which is kind of nice. Takes a little pressure off you about poetry, because poetry's hard. So the first poem we're going to look at, I have it printed out because jiggy. No, I just have everything from school here. I love this poem. I love both of these poems very much. So Jane Hirschfield wrote this gorgeous poem 14 lines long. I want to read it with you and then talk about what's going on in the poem. And then you're going to take a couple minutes and then you're going to evaluate it based on the criteria that I've asked you to look at. And evaluate means you are judging based on criteria I set out for you. Okay. So on your screen in front of you, I want you to read along as I read it. So Changing Everything by Jane Hirschfield. I'll make mine a little bit bigger because I got the bad eyes. Here we go. I was walking again in the woods. A yellow light was sifting all I saw. Willfully, with a cold heart, I took a stick, lifted it to the opposite side of the path. There, I said to myself, that's done now, brushing one hand against the other to clean them of the tiny fragments of bark. So very simple poem. A lot of you are like, what just happened? Okay, so this is what you have to do. She's taking a moment in time and she's packing it full of a lot of emotion. So in the first stanza, you can picture this. You probably walked in the woods somewhere in town, outside of town, on your own property, whatever. So the walking through the woods. So, and it's walking again in the woods. So this must be a common thing. And then hopefully you've been in the woods and it's in the morning or later in the afternoon and the sun comes in through the tree branches and you can see the rays and it comes in and it sifts everything. And you can see there's kind of like dust particles and such in those sunbeams. So walking in the woods, walking again in the woods, and this yellow light is sifting all I saw. So it's talking about not just literally walking in the woods, but maybe working through something. And there's a yellow light looking at everything. So maybe things are on the mind, problems they're working through, issues, concerns, people are bugging them, there's stress about something. And there's this yellow light that's just surrounding everything. And then the next stanza, she says, willfully with a cold heart. So on purpose, willfully. And with a cold heart, meaning not happy, not feeling, there's coldness in the heart. So something is amiss. So willfully with a cold heart, the speaker takes a stick from one side of the path in the wilderness, and there's this light coming down. They pick up this stick, and they lift it up, and they put it on the opposite side of the path, on the other side of the path. So what you have to think about is she's saying, again, she's in the woods, and there's this yellow light, and she picks up this stick, but this stick could be a problem, a friend, a concern, a stressor, something not good, because it's with a cold heart. Picks up that thing, and it's not really a stick. It's a metaphor. Is there something that they don't want in their life anymore? Is something that's bringing them down and hardship? And they pick it up and they put it on the other side of the path. So it's not in the way. It's gone. It's moved. It's moved from that place where it was bothering the speaker to someplace else. And the third stanza, this is where you know this is what's happening. The speaker says to himself, there, I said to myself, that's done now. Like it's done. Like I'm done with this thing that's driving me, hurting my heart, driving me nuts. And I brush my hands like I'm done with it. Done. Not going to worry about it. Not going to perseverate on it. And you clean them of the tiny fragments of bark. So anything that might stick to it. So it's like a fresh change. Oh, I love this poem. I love this poem so, so much. So that's the first one. So as you evaluate it, remember the line length. I answered all those things. How many stanzas? I already answered it. The rhyme scheme, I answered it for you. What kind of poetry? I've already answered that for you. And then you go through and look at the form of the poem. 4 lines, 5 lines, 5 lines, the stanzas. Does it add to the meaning of the poem? This very simple, to the point poem. And every word matters in this poem. The figurative language, does it add anything to the poem? And, oh, I hope you answer this one the way I want you to. And then sound devices, the rhyme, the rhythm. Because remember, poetry is meant to be read out loud. And then the theme, creatively. So the theme of the poem is how you deal with things that are bringing you down, that are stressing you out, how you move on from them in a really positive way, I think. And then it's accessible and engaging to you. So you evaluate that. When you evaluate it, I'm going to add up the points you gave it, and that tells me the winner. So don't panic if you don't get a super duper score. But over the course of looking at poems, your score should get better. You should be getting better at this. Now, the second poem we have, it's called Happiness by Raymond Carver. And I don't know if you've ever been out to Ocean View Cemetery. It's a weird question, kind of. I used to live out that direction when I first moved to Port Angeles, and I would go for long walks every evening or in the morning on the weekends or whatever, and I would walk through Ocean View Cemetery, and it's a really old cemetery, and I like to look at older graves. It's a little bit morbid, but I do. But if you take the road into Ocean View Cemetery, you'll see after that bend when you're right along the cliff, there's a beautiful granite grave with benches, and it's huge. It's Raymond Carver's grave. And his widow still lives here. He died here. He died here in 1988. And he, interesting man. If you've ever been to the library and you've been in that, so you go into the public library and there's the big rooms off to the side as you go into the main library. That's the Carver room, Raymond Carver room. So he's a pretty important person. So here's this poem, Happiness, and I want you to open up that poem. And you can see a bit longer. You can see it's 25 lines long. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stanzas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stanzas. And you can see again, it looks pretty free versey to me. There's 4 lines, and that's first stanza, 3 lines, 4 lines, 4 lines, 3 lines. So it kind of follows a pattern, but not really, because the last stanza only has 1 line. And if you look at the ends of the lines, out, coffee, stuff, throughout, friend, wrote, then nothing rhymes. So another example of free verse poetry. So let's read it. And I love this poem so much. Here we go. Happiness by Raymond Carver. So early, it's still almost dark out. I'm near the window with coffee and the usual early morning stuff that passes for thought, when I see the boy and his friend walking up the road to deliver the newspaper. They wear caps and sweaters, and one boy has a bag over his shoulder. They are so happy. They aren't saying anything, these boys. I think if they could, they would take each other's arms. It's early in the morning, and they're doing this thing together. They come on slowly. The sky is taking on light, though the moon still hangs pale over the water. Such beauty that for a minute, death and ambition, even love, doesn't enter into this. Happiness, it comes on unexpectedly and goes beyond really any early morning. Talk about it. So Raymond Carver has taken the idea of happiness and he's made it into a story, a narrative poem. So you can tell in the first stanza, pretty accessible. Imagine the speaker. It's early in the morning. I don't know how early you wake up in the morning, but I wake up super early. And so the speaker, it's up early in the morning, still dark, almost dark out, like the sun's kind of coming up. It's a little twilighty. The speaker is near the window with coffee and just thinking about maybe the day's things, noticing clouds, noticing the weather, things like this, the normal things that he or she thinks about in the morning when they're having their first sips of coffee. And then the speaker sees a boy and his friend. Don't know if the friend's a brother, sister, anything, but we know it's early. And some of you, maybe you have a paper route. Maybe you know somebody who has a paper route. That's a job that's often friends or siblings do together. So in my mind, even though there's no hint to it, I think they're brothers or a brother-sister. And they walk up the road to deliver the newspaper. So they're just walking with the newspaper. And they have caps and sweaters. So caps, kind of old-fashioned, but, you know, hats and some sort of something warm on. So it must be cool in the morning. And one boy has a bag over the shoulder, you know, where the newspapers are in the bag. It used to be pretty typical when I was a kid. And the speaker notices they're happy. And he notices they're happy by their body language. And knows that they're not even talking to each other. They're just doing this thing on a beautiful morning. Today's Monday. And then the speaker reflects that they look so happy that he says, I think if they could, they would take each other's arms. like siblings or really close friends would link arms or be closer together. Like think of you as younger. And it's early in the morning and they're doing this thing together. Like they have this thing of delivering the paper to houses in the neighborhood early in the morning, and they're enjoying this time together. It's kind of a beautiful thing. And they come on slowly. So they're walking slowly up the drive to deliver the paper. And the sky is taking on more light. You can still see the moon in the sky. And hit a view of the Strait of Juan de Fuca, so hangs over the water. And then the speaker takes time on line 19, just such beauty. Loves this scene of seeing these two young people deliver the newspaper who clearly love each other, who clearly like being together, who clearly like doing this job together, this time that they have together. So he says, such beauty that for a minute, death and ambition, even love, doesn't enter into this. There's no talking, there's no physical contact. You could just tell these two people are happy. They're happy to be together. And then he says in the end, happiness, it comes on unexpectedly. Like you can see it in everyday ways and everyday things. If your eyes are open, it comes on unexpectedly. And it goes beyond, like it's so much bigger than this early morning scene. And then he says, talk about it. Like, find something in you that makes you happy and share it with that person. So just a beautiful poem. And I wish we were together because dang, I really hate this. So again, it's same thing. Evaluate it, line lengths and such. Make sure you put line in front of it. How many stanzas it has. Is there a rhyme scheme? Is it free verse traditional poetry? And then evaluate it. Remember, I'm looking for the points you're giving these poems. And then I will, Monday at 4 o'clock, I will look at your point totals and I'll tell you the winner of this round of poetry. Yeah, so enjoy. Oh, I love these poems so much. I hope you're enjoying too. Oh, and then you're going to make a comment because that's my favorite part. So your comment, remember, is something like, let me see if I can find it. Word for word. Here it comes. Dun, dun, dun. You're going to make a comment about the two poems, and this is the part I grade. And it's either a question, and did you know you can respond to each other? You just hover near the hand, this is right hand, there's an arrow, and then when you comment it has that person's 08 number, but they can see that you commented on it. So you can comment on people's questions, what you think is important, the theme, and I like 10 or more words. You did such a great job, the last two poems. And it's my favorite part because I like seeing you guys interact. And then I know that we're together because I just miss you. Okay, that's it. That's for the poetry assignment. And then check out the novel. Okay, bye.